Joined the United States Army in 1967 at Fort Benning, Georgia, the home of the infantry. I was commissioned through Ohio University in '69, on active duty from '69 to '71, and ultimately went on, after I came home from Vietnam, I joined the Ohio National Guard, and I retired from there in 2007. I did National Guard and Reserve. It's interesting, when I got elected to the Court of Appeals, I had 17 good years in the Army and was prohibited from being a member of the Ohio National Guard because you can't be on the Court of Appeals and an officer in the National Guard. So I had to resign the National Guard, and I went and taught Army ROTC at John Carroll University for 3 years to get my final 3 years for retirement. So I'm a retired Lieutenant Colonel, United States Army. My last assignment with the Ohio National Guard was I was a senior JAG in Atlanta at the Olympics in 1996, and it was a real challenging job. We were there at the bombing. And then what many people don't know, 2 nights after the bombing, Indiana National Guardsman was shot and killed on a city street.
In Atlanta?
In Atlanta. He was on duty. Nobody talked about that, but I was at the Atlanta jail at 5:30 in the morning with the survivor. There was 2 of them. One was killed, one was injured. It was awful, just awful.
What made you want to enter the military in the first place?
I had one of those very liberal parents. My father was a World War II veteran, and he was a liberal. He let me choose which branch of the Army I was going into.
You're going to do it.
It was going to happen. There was no way. Actually, it's even more serious than that. I had, as a freshman at Ohio University, joined ROTC in the Air Force because I wanted to fly for the Air Force. And one flight physical ended that career. I didn't have the vision. So I dropped out, and then in '67, the Vietnam War was still raging. And it really was my father. He said, son, you're going in the military after college. He says, you may as well be an officer. So that was how I ended up at Fort Benning, Georgia in 1967. I had a profoundly unique job in Vietnam. I was the escort officer for the networks covering the war, which meant that if they wanted to get right to where the fighting was, I had to take them there and bring them home safely. I had some of the world-class reporters. Did very well. I always tell everybody my success in Vietnam was that there was 10 of us and we all came home alive. So that's a success story as far as I'm concerned. Unfortunately, I was in Hawaii on R&R in February of '71, and 4 of the people I had been escorting towards Laos were shot out of the sky and killed, and I would have been with them. It profoundly changed my value system. I think that it's particularly having been in the Army when it was not very popular to be in the Army with my age group. You know, that's during the '60s and '70s. But you know, I answered the call to duty, and there isn't a day that I don't go look back on that with pride. I'm glad I did it. Well, I got out of the Army, and I became first a reporter, then I became a union organizer, and it was about 10 years. And everywhere I went, both as a reporter and as a union organizer, and as a lobbyist before the legislature, it just seemed to me that the lawyers were the ones that were making the difference in society. And I just decided I wanted to be one of them. So I became a lawyer, and I guess the same pattern happened about 10 years into that career. I started thinking it's the judges who make the difference here. It's the judges who decide whether or not we're going to have a fair trial. It's the judges who decide, you know, how the law is applied. And I said, they're the ones that are really making things happen. So I ran for the Court of Appeals, and I won. And I don't think, I guess it was about 10 years I was there. I think I'm on a 10-year cycle. I'm at the Court of Appeals, and I'm looking around, and I'm saying, you know, it really is the Supreme Court where the action is. So now I find myself here. I hope this is the last stop. My wife died in a car accident in the middle of this, so I was raising 4 children at the same time. So yeah, I was at one point I was a judge, a nursing student, an Army officer, and a single parent. So I do know how to multitask. I think I've got that mastered. I think the military gives you always a heightened sense of right and wrong. You know, the military is only brought in when something has gone terribly wrong. And, you know, we put our lives on the line and try to straighten it out. And I think that's also true of lawyers and judges, that we're only called upon when something's gone terribly wrong. Nobody wants us around otherwise. And it's true. You know, nobody wants to be in court. Nobody wants to pay a lawyer. But when you're in trouble, boy, that's where you turn.